Hello and welcome to TheFederal. The DMK was founded in 1949 and this is its 75th year. To commemorate its 75th year, biographer, writer and political commentator Mr. R. Kannan has come up with the DMK's Years, a very comprehensive biographical account of the party. Kannan has already written two very important books on Tamil Nadu's political landscape. One is on MGR and the other on Annadurai. Both these books, along with the DMK's Years, has been published by the Penguin. The DMK's Years will be released on 31st of this month. So here we are with Kannan to discuss the book. Sir, I wanted to start. You've already done two books, two very important books, which I consider very important in Tamil Nadu's political landscape, and also for people who don't understand Tamil Nadu, on MGR and on Anna. I wanted to ask, why did you choose a political party instead of a personality for your third book, sir?
I think it's a very pertinent question. I mean, the first two books speak to Tamil Nadu's post-independent history up to a particular point. If you look at the biography of the DMK founder, Anna, it tells you the story from 1949 or even prior, when the DMK's founding party, the parent party, Dravidar Kazhagam, was in existence with Periyar as its head, and the breakup between the parent organization and those led by the young Anna.
Yeah.
So from 1949, Tamil Nadu's history with the emphasis on the DMK, because that is what Tamil Nadu's history is after 1949. If you were to discount the period that the Congress was in power until 1967. So with Anna's death, the first book concludes. The second book takes the story further up to MGR's death in 1987. This work will take the story all the way up to the current year.
Yeah.
In fact, it talks about even the current parliamentary elections. It just doesn't have the electoral data there. So the emphasis was on the DMK because the DMK has been in existence from 1949 to this time, and this is the 75th year of the DMK.
Yeah.
It is also the 75th year of NATO.
Okay.
Okay. So in trying to lay the emphasis on the DMK, I thought you could cover a wide canvas. If this had been a biography of, let's say, Kalaignar Karunanidhi, it would have reached up to 2018.
Yeah.
On his death, it would conclude. And for the last 2 years, he was not that active. So therefore, to cover a wider canvas, and the hero of this book is the DMK itself.
Yes.
All right. So I thought it gives you a larger maneuvering room for the oeuvre.
Okay.
So that was the reason why I chose.
As you mentioned, this book has come at a very opportune moment in Tamil Nadu's political history. This is the 75th year of the DMK, but it must have been a very exhaustive task for you. How did you start? Why did you decide to do a biography of the DMK?
As I explained earlier, I wanted to tell the story of Tamil Nadu, the socio-political story of Tamil Nadu since independence. This is actually post-independent Tamil Nadu. The book is for someone who cannot really read in Tamil. It is for a larger audience, even for my own children who can't read or write in Tamil. So if they want to understand what had happened here in these last 75 years, and the party is in power at the moment.
Exactly.
It has been in power at the center for, I think, 17 years or more. So it has been in power here on and off. It's a very important party. Today, as we speak, we have the return of the coalition arrangements. And the DMK and the DMK's rival, the ADMK. In fact, the ADMK pioneered the coalition experiment in 1979 with Charan Singh. This was the first regional party to be part of a central administration, however short-lived that administration was. So the idea was to have, it was the 75th year of the party. I am familiar with some of the personalities of the party. I've had some contacts with them. I think I have some insights, and I've had access to a number of original material which the DMK, the DMK's founder, the DMK's leader, Kalaignar Karunanidhi himself is a very prolific record keeper.
Yeah.
His biography, his autobiography, his speeches in the Murasoli, etc. So I had access to this material, and I wanted to bring all this material that is available only in Tamil till now to the English-speaking audience.
Okay.
And when there is a lot of interest in regional parties, because regional parties have come to stay with us all over India. So when we have an interest, I think I could say the story much better than, or few could say the story well, and I considered myself as one of those.
Okay.
And I have the interest and the time.
Okay.
Whereas others may not have the interest and the time.
What were the challenges that you faced? How did you go about collecting up? I mean, you mentioned that you had access to some materials, but that wouldn't alone be enough to write a book of this importance. So, what was the modus operandi? How did you go about collecting materials and information?
I had a good research assistant who actually got me the original material. I mean, he was a paid research assistant, so as to speak, but he was very useful, very helpful, because most of the book was written while I was overseas.
Okay. Okay.
And the internet has made everything possible. WhatsApp has made many other things possible. So some of this was sent to me by scans.
Okay.
So it was quite arduous, if you may. The book took me about 4 years, and I could not lay my hand on the physical copies of some of the original material.
Okay.
I could see them as PDF, I could see them as photocopies, etc., but not the original. For instance, poet Bharatidasan had come out very caustically against Anna and his family in 1958.
Okay.
He ran a journal called Kuyil, or the Cuckoo. And he took pot shots at Anna, very crass, very ad hominem attacks.
Okay.
Now, I could see it as a scan, but I could never get hold of
The
physical
original
copy.
Okay. Okay.
And I wasn't very sure which issue it was. I knew the year, but not the month.
Okay.
So, therefore, when I documented it, I just, I didn't go into the detail. I've seen it. I said he launched ad hominem attacks, and then Anna simply ignored him. Okay, but I didn't document it. I said it was in 1958 because I didn't have the page number, I didn't have the year, I didn't have the date, because as you see in the book has 100 pages of notes. Every single quote, if I am not mistaken, is credited, is documented. I think that is very important, and that comes from my academic training.
Okay.
But the book is not academic.
Can you explain why do you? I mean, I saw that you've mentioned it in your preface also that it shouldn't be seen as an academic work, but
Correct.
Why?
Academia has a very bad connotation. I'll tell you why. Academia has a very mixed connotation. Academia means it is cerebral, too cerebral that it is limited to a few. Like, let's say if you go to the Tamil magazine or journal, Kanayari. Now, anyone who reads, how many people would read Kanayari?
Not many.
But Kanayari has
very high
standards, all right?
Yeah.
I want this book to have those standards, but I don't want that to scare away a regular person from reading it. So the book is written in a very readable manner.
Okay.
The notes shouldn't scare you.
Yeah.
So the notes are at the very end. The language is that it just flows in. So you pick the book at the railway station here at Central, and by the time you get off at Bangalore, you've read about 100 pages and you're happy with it. That is the idea, because I wanted to make available contemporary history to younger people and the old, rich, but also easy to digest.
Okay. Sir, as you would mention when we were talking about accessing material. Kalaignar himself has documented a lot of materials. I mean, as far as the DMK is concerned, a lot of material is available in Tamil. Kalaignar has written volumes of Ninjakku Neethi. Anna
Correct.
is also a writer.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
what would you call is something new that you're offering to people who read, people who know Tamil, who understands the politics of Tamil Nadu, but they are reading this book. So, what do you have to offer them in this book?
I think it's a very important question. What is it that I bring to the table anew? Firstly, Kalaignar Karunanidhi's 6-volume autobiography are his impressions. It's a first-hand account of how he perceived things. Okay, so there's a lot of candor there, where, for instance, he talks about even slapping his wife at one point. And he also talks about the huge speed bump that the Dindigul 1973 by-election created for the DMK, for the DMK's future. So there is an amount of candor there. But it is from his standpoint. This book, on the other hand, will be quite objective. Okay? And it looks at things from his perspective. For instance, the Elam Fourth War, the Fourth Elam War.
The
Final war. His take on his stand on the Elam Final War is at variance with what independent observers would have felt. This book speaks to that as well.
Okay.
It speaks about his view. Or, for instance, another instance where G.K. Mopanar reportedly was to have aspired to become the Prime Minister. At least his partymen wanted him to be the Prime Minister. And then there were reports that the DMK wasn't fully backing him. Okay. So this book records what Kalaignar Karunanidhi has to say. But it also records what others have to say. So this is a one-stop place for, it's a very balanced account. It looks into, and the reader can make up his mind or her mind after reading it.
Okay, that brings me to my next question. So, I've also known you as a DMK spokesperson, but I see that this book is free of any bias.
Thank you.
So, I wanted you to elaborate on that. How did you, I mean, when you started, were you still with the DMK, and how did you kind of navigate that area?
Good question. I was born in the north of Madras. I was born in 1962. Soon after I was born, the Chinese walked into India. I had nothing to do with it. Although it's very difficult to reassure my wife that I had nothing to do with it. So I grew up, north of the Madras is where the DMK was founded. It is a labor neighborhood. It is a neighborhood made up of middle income, working group people, etc. It was a very fertile place for the Dravidian movement to take roots. It was not chosen, without much thinking. That the place was chosen for the launch, etc. For good reasons. This is a place where you wouldn't be founding the DMK in T Nagar.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So it had to find, water had to find its level, and it found its level. So I grew up in a milieu where I had heard a lot about the DMK. Election rallies, elections were festivals. For about a month, there was a festive atmosphere. There were rallies, cycle rallies, and there were, colorful festoons and people sloganeering. It was all beautiful to watch. It was, it was not the internet era. It was not the mobile phone era. It was not even the television era. It was a very lovely, I watched, I imbibed all this. And it was also a place where all leaders and others would come to address. There's a place called Sural Mettai in the north of Madras in Washerman Pet. Every leader of renown had addressed.
Okay.
From Anna to you name it, from MGR to anyone. And I, as a school student, would go and listen to these speeches. And I was very impressed with the way these people would speak, the alliteration, the forcefulness of these speeches. Left me quite dazzled. So there was an early interest in this. And then when I was a child, I was about, I think, 9 years old or 7 years old when Anna passed away. I was 7 years old when Anna passed away. And then I remember that day very distinctly firstly because I was very young, and so it left a deep impression on me. The city had come to a standstill.
Yeah.
There was one other instance when this happened. This was when MGR was expelled or suspended from the DMK.
Yeah.
By then this was in 1972, and I was 10 years old, and I was with my granddad, and we were in Ratan Bazaar. And I remember the whole of the city was only agog with just this news, people talking about how this injustice has been done. So these left very deep impressions on me. So as I grew up, I took to debating at college and at law school. And there was a natural inclination towards the art of speaking, not writing at that point. And then I had this opportunity to go overseas to study. I came back, and I thought it was time for me. I was about 26 or so, or 25. I wanted to formally join a political party. This was a time when MGR was no more. And I thought, in my mind, that MGR himself reportedly said after me, deluge.
Yeah.
So I thought that the DMK was a party that had an organization. It had certain...
But you were more inclined to MGR, could I say that?
MGR fascinates me. I've seen him in person a few times, and I've been just carried away, bowled over by that experience, by the charisma that hits you when you see this man. And he didn't have to do anything at all. But in the long run, I calculated, I was 26. I didn't know much, not that I know much now. But at 26, it was a very impressionable age. And I thought that the DMK was a long-standing organization, which could be an instrument for social change for someone like me. So I toyed with some of I knew a couple of people. I knew Vidudalai Virumbi.
Okay.
He was a Rajya Sabha MP for 3 terms, and he was also the propaganda secretary of the party. But you know, the position propaganda secretary assumed enormous significance after Jayalalitha was appointed propaganda secretary. Until then, there were several propaganda secretaries.
Yes.
Nobody cared. Right?
True, yeah.
Vidudalai Virumbi was one of the best speakers in the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam. And I, as a student, we had a small organization where we would host meetings every month. So I've invited him. There was a friendship, a relationship with him, and then some others. So I thought this was the right place for me. But I went back to the US, and life took me away from here. In 1996, there was a hiatus in my UN assignment. I came home for personal reasons, and I stayed here for about 16 months. During those 16 months, I got to know the DMK president, Kalaignar Karunanidhi, quite well. He was very generous with me. He was very gracious towards me. He must have seen me as a young chap and full of energy, zest, and so on. And I used to write also in Tamil. I used to pen center page articles for Dinamani. And one of the articles that I penned on Sri Lanka's ethnic issue caught his attention.
Okay.
And I had argued that after the death of Rajiv Gandhi, that the center of a Ministry of External Affairs has lost the ability to distinguish or to separate Sri Lankan Tamils from the LTTE. They were conflating the two. So this was my argument. And he seemed to like it. So I got to know him. I did a book in Tamil about my 2.5 year stint. I'd only worked for the UN for 2.5 years then, in Tamil, and he launched it for me. He was in the opposition then. So, so that is how I came to know him. I met with him several times then. It was not that difficult to meet with chief ministers then. I wish we turned like Kerala, where chief ministers are chief ministers and ordinary mortals. And so, again, I left back to the UN. I wanted to go to Parliament. That didn't happen. Perhaps I should have waited. But, politics is a bit of a gamble.
Yeah.
It's like the stock market. You never know when it would crash and whether it will happen. So I couldn't take those risks. I was from a small middle-income group family. I was the first graduate at home. In fact, I was the first high school student.
Okay.
My mother is only a sixth grader.
Okay.
So she's on par with Kamaraj. And my dad is a ninth form dropout.
Okay.
So I was the first one to go to school, to college, to law school, to go abroad to study, and so on and so forth. So the base was not very strong for me to take these risks.
Okay.
And wait it out. So I went back. With his consent, of course, I went in and told him. And then, to cut a long story short, I reconnected with them again in 2013. And it was mutual, so in 2016, I decided to speak for them. It was a moment when we thought the DMK would come back to power, etc. And I think the DMK lost by a mere 4 lakh votes or something like that. I learned quite a bit. And after that, again, the question of, you have to be here. I was working overseas. So, there was a mismatch. Since then, slowly I had, I had, should I say, there was a bit of a gulf and distance that grew. I have decided, even when I was there with them, it was sometimes very difficult for me to, as a spokesperson, to justify every stand. For instance, when we lost the deposit at RK Nagar, because we, I think, did strategic voting and went for TTV. I think so. I surmise. I wouldn't know. That was a mistake. So when I was being asked about I said, this is a moment for the party to introspect. So, so I'd always been that way.
Okay. So you mentioned culture. You speak about cultural nationalism, secularism, the foundations on which the DMK continues to exist. How do you see the party doing on those fronts today?
I don't think cultural nationalism is very important today. What is important today is very simple. Providing basic, catering to the basic needs of a great multitude of people, creating jobs and preserving the environment. And then we are water starved, and making sure that there is enough water for now and for the future. I think cultural nationalism could be passé. So is opposition to Hindi imposition, and so on and so forth. People are not. Look at what has happened in Andhra Pradesh. All the social welfare schemes, notwithstanding, they had brought them down because they want jobs. So the difficulty with creating jobs is the more you industrialize this place, the more it's going to come into, it's going to harm the environment. So you'll have to find a balance. You will have to think, you will have to have a vision for Tamil Nadu that I think most leaders today do not have, despite they might have good intentions, etc., but they're caught in this. Politics is like a treadmill. And if you're on it, you have to continue to keep moving. So you have no time for other things, but you must make time. That is what leadership is. And if you want to win elections, this is the trajectory. And therefore it becomes a tragedy. But if you want to not win elections, if you want to assume what we call in psychology as a generativity, you want to leave a legacy, then you have to think beyond elections. And I don't think that is happening.
Okay. So my last question, what is your next project?
Penguin asked me to do a book on the biography of Tamil Nadu.
Okay, that must be more challenging.
It'll be, I hope it's my magnum opus if I ever agree to do it. As I said earlier, you asked me if this book gives you an idea of Tamil Nadu's history and so on. And I said it is not complete.
Yeah.
So this, on the other hand, will speak to Tamil Nadu's culture. If I agree to do it, culture, its topography, its rivers, its hills,
Okay.
its people, its cuisine, its temples, its faith, its dargahs.
Okay. Thank you so much for your times.
Thank you, Kavita.